Opeth with Sorceress, an album that's already become sort of like a long-lost friend prior to even listening to it for the very first time. Considering we've got a lot of webisodes that were explaining the making of the album, we were treated to 3 singles, the title track, The Wildflowers, and Will-o'-the-Wisp. It just feels like this is an album that, whenever it dropped, it was more of a finally moment as opposed to, the excitement building, cresting, and becoming this big old pop. But that being said, listening to the remainder of the disc is really excitement enough, and this is a 10-track affair that clocks in at a little bit more than 51 minutes in length. So the third observation of Opeth says they've gone full prog rock. Yeah, that means there's no growling in this album, so my prediction that maybe there was going to be one just to sort of tease us all was wrong, and you know what? That's okay. I got no worries, no problems with that. So Persephone starts off this album, and it's an introductory piece that is extremely beautiful, and that's what kind of got this album immediately going off in a very strong fashion in my head. The fact that Persephone has this really soft, very melodious whole idea to it. It's something that immediately you already get those chills that Opeth albums tend to give some folks, but it does so in the way in which it is calculated, and in the way in which it is really presented. And this is one that feels like it's just, even if it's just presenting the overall basis of the album, even if it's just getting us toward the title track, it does a great job at doing so. We hear some soft spoken word that's conveying a piece of a story, and then we launch right into the title track, which we've talked about, but whenever it comes to where this stands in the album, with Sorceress, The Wildflowers, and Will-o'-the-Wisp, the 3 singles coming back to back to back, I can successfully say that this is, it was a really good order to place them. Sorceress launches off this album in a good way. It gives it that little extra oomph, that extra darkness, and really, whenever you consider what a sorceress is, whenever you consider the lyricism, whenever you consider what you just heard with Persephone, the whole thing just makes sense. It's really becoming the master of balance, setting something up that's beautiful and then descending it, taking it down a notch in order to really paint something that has a little bit more sinister behind it, which is exactly what it feels like that this track does. The Wildflowers, of course, is just a really sprawling track that has an amazing chorus. I'm a really big fan of this chorus, and a guitar solo that's just absolutely well done. The sort of Jekyll and Hyde effect that you get from this song is definitely one of the early highlights of this album. I like this one, I believe, the best out of the 3 singles that we received, even though Will-o'-the-Wisp, this sort of beautiful, almost ballady track, a very folky, backdrop to it, has a lot of strength behind it, and Mike's voice, it sounds shaky purposefully a little bit, but it's definitely a powerful performance, and one that could easily go down as one of his better performances once the career of Opeth is said and done. But then we get into brand new territory. We get into Chrysalis, and this song is exceptionally heavy to start, but then descends a little bit further into prog rock country. And once again, the real theme that you're going to find on Sorceress is strong vocal performances that are being coupled with these This is the album that perhaps would have best suited Opeth fans in place of Heritage, because this has enough of those traces of what Opeth was about, going all the way up to Watershed, and enough presentation as to what Opeth was set to become. Now, I understand that you can't predict the future. I understand that you can't predict where you're going to be going with your career, but this is an album that feels like it's more closely attuned to perhaps being in between Watershed and Heritage. It's just that the way in which this balance works out is really very akin to that. It gives it a lot of flavor, it gives it a lot of character, and the movement of a song such as Chrysalis makes it a huge bonus. The heaviness that is embroiled within portions of this song, you just give it added flavor. Not to mention, it does please a lot of the old faithful. The riff that you hear on this definitely feels like it's just unearthed from old Opeth, and it's great. I'm sure that there are many purists out there saying, well, they should have thrown a growl in there. Well, they didn't. You're going to have to suck it up, Buttercup. Crybabies always find their blankies, I'm sure. If you look hard enough, you'll find yours. Sorceress 2 begins something that's also interesting on this album. We've heard it with Will-o'-the-Wisp. We have these softer moments where it seems like we're taking a break from everything, and really perhaps investing a little bit more into the character of the Sorceress, perhaps gaining a little bit more of a story that is being sort of fractionally told to us, little by little, piece by piece. I like the softness here. I like the way that it thematically sets up some of what you are going to hear on the second half of this disc. It almost feels like a real natural intermission that is almost like a preview, and I dig that, considering at 3 minutes and 43 seconds, it's one that sort of just breaks down and immediately launches into Strange Brew. Strange Brew, to call it a highlight would be almost an insult to the word highlight, because Strange Brew is easily the track on this album that has the most going for it, and also has the most to say about it. It's 8 minutes and 44 seconds, so you might think, well, there's your reason why it's the longest track on the album, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. This is Opeth showcasing that it has so many different sides and tools within its toolkit that this new era should be really embraced by a lot of music-loving individuals, which I know that a lot of them do. This is a song that almost has a Radiohead-type melancholy to it at times. There's some jazzy overtures, a lot of minor chords being used in order to really thrust this into a more depressive state, or at least a more saddened state. It has that sort of that's that harshness in the middle that we were talking about with a track such as Chrysalis, that kind of gives you a little bit of a beacon of hope that perhaps this is where the growl's coming. Nope, it's no growl. But there's so much here. That's why it's almost really difficult to imagine people not embracing this new era with full heart, considering it shows a lot of the talent that this band possessed, and I love what old Opeth was able to do. But some did say that they were a bit monochromatic. You know, they were a bit monotone. They were black or white. They were one or the other. What I would love to see is all of this intermixed with that, because man, oh man, I really think that would just create this. It would do one of two things. It would be too good to be true and actually suck, or it would be so damn good that our heads would all collectively explode, and Opeth would have to discover a brand new fan base, who would then, in turn, would listen to the stuff, and then their heads would collectively explode, and you can see what's happening here. It's an endless cycle. But Strange Brew just twists and turns, it harbors, and it returns to that melancholy, that Radiohead-esque melancholy, as I call it, to really just deliver a song nearly 9 minutes in length that just feels like it has it all. It feels like it has presence that is just abound. You know, it just oozes it seeps out of its pores. It's like smelling a sweaty guy's armpit, only the sweat smells like sex. Good sex. With someone you'll want to have sex with. Not your parents fucking, you gross son of the... Ugh. The last two tracks that we get prior to our finale is a Fleeting Chance and Era, and both of these have a nice strong tint to it. I like the way that they sort of tease at the softness a little bit before really boistering up into something a little bit more powerful, something that has a little bit more of a drive. The keys and the harp, there are some instruments here that are just playing some major time rolls, and really keys and percussion are very critical whenever it comes to this album, along with that soft acoustic whirl. You can hear some of that Blackwater Park Harvest style acoustic whirling coming out of this album. It sort of oozes as well, and really with Persephone's slight return, which finishes this one off, we kind of get the close of this story. The book is being really put back onto the shelves. We're getting our epitaph, our epilogue, should I say, not the epitaph. Slight turn of phrase. So what do we think about this album? I mean, this is a long time coming. This has been a point of excitement really since July or August. So what's the verdict on Sorceress? And I think the verdict is very simple. Out of the 3 albums that we've gotten out of this new era, if there's one thing that should be stated, is that Opeth continues to improve. Some may disagree. I'm sure that you will. That's fine. Heritage, I still feel, is one of the weakest that we've gotten from this band. With Pale Communion getting a little bit better. As Sorceress, this one's really bringing the package closer and closer to being together. And I like how Era sort of, comedically ends this this album prior to Persephone's slight return. It's almost like it's saying, tongue-in-cheek, and this has nothing to do with the lyricism. Don't try to, unearth this like you're a fucking music anthropologist, you dick. It almost makes it sound like this was just an era of the band in time, and you know the next album may be the one that has the return to the growls and all the other crap. It's just sort of funny to me. I think of these weird things. Shut up. I like this album a lot, though. I think it boasts a lot of strengths that we've sort of seen showcased in little small bits on Pale Communion, but it came full circle with Sorceress. They really dialed up some of that harder edge music in order to couple with the soft acoustic bliss, either that or just the overall atmospheric charm that this era of Opeth has granted us. I like what they've done here, and I think that if they continue this way for the rest of their career, I'm going to be just fine with it. This is a 91 out of 100 album. It's not perfect by any means necessary. It's one that does require some digestion. It does require a couple of listens in order to really feel very confident about how you feel about this album. I mean, you might think that that's a bad thing, but it's actually very cool because with each passing time that you listen to it, you investigate and discover more, which actually, all that you really investigate and find leads you to feel a little bit better about the album. So it's got a very nice psychological reinforcement there. I want to know what you guys think about Sorceress. This is a big album. This is huge, man. So definitely do not be silent on this one. Let me know in the comments below. My name is coverkillernation. We have a huge weekend ahead of us. This is just getting started. This is the, you know, we just added the dough, or, you know, added the whatever to the whatever. I had a great idea in my mind, and it went bye-byes. Let's all laugh at coverkillernation. Ha ha ha. You fucked up. You fucked up. You fucked up, dumbass. I'll talk to y'all later. Take care.